thought that the way you talk to your students about placement might not be helping them? Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm the geeky ballerina, and I have stopped using the word placement in my classes altogether. I don't say placement, I say alignment. And this is why. When you place something somewhere, it stays there. This cake stand here, I have placed it. I don't dance with it. It doesn't move. It's definitely not moving right now. Placement is static. Alignment is dynamic, which means it moves. If our body is aligned, it will move and make adjustments appropriate to whatever we're doing. I know that some teachers really love the idea of one placement. It's like the one ring. Don't be Gollum, guys. Placement is so rigid, and it's something that has to be held and gripped and clenched. And if you teach placement in first position and then you want to move into an arabesque, it is no longer useful information because the body shape is so different. So instead, there are three key things that we look at when we're teaching this concept of alignment. And then we constantly encourage our students to self-evaluate and self-correct so that as they get more advanced, they can get better at doing this themselves, and we work our way out of our jobs. It's a very fun job, but I do try to work my way out of it. So let's get started. Let's talk about the pelvis first. I know some people really, really hate the term neutral pelvis. So I don't know what you want to call it, but when I work with my students, we talk about the hip bones and the hip dimples being level. This is your ASIS, this is your PSIS. This is also sometimes called your SI joint because it's where your sacrum and your ilium meet. Ilia, actually, because you get one on each side, but that doesn't matter. So here we are, hip points, hip dimples. Many of us can reach thumb to longest finger and basically reach those two. We want this to be level. We don't want to tuck under. This was more common a while ago, but honestly nowadays we see more kids tilting this way. I think it's just because we all sit more than we used to, but the goal is to get those level. The process of leveling, there's a couple ways you could do it, and I have a strong preference for one. We want to engage the core muscles to hold that, but we don't want to start with the core muscles. If I start with my abdominal muscles to bring this into alignment, it's going to do that. And now I can't breathe, right? I find it much more effective to think of the sacrum going down. These muscles here will engage to help maintain things. But if we can initiate it from the tailbone or the sacrum or the idea of a really long cape, if we can start it by going down, you get the alignment you're looking for. By the way, when the ASIS and the PSIS are as level as that skeleton can do, it also opens up the front of the hip joint so you can access your turnout, right? So if you're getting kids here and they try to turn out, or you have kids who are pinching the penny, heaven forbid, I hate that phrase, and they try to go here, either way we've locked up their turnout, they're not going to be as successful. So this is really, really good. That level ASIS, PSIS, neutral pelvis, whatever you want to call it, that as our home base space really does a lot of great things. It engages the core in a way that is sustainable throughout movement. It enables the dancer to have full access to their range of motion. It helps us hold rotation without excess strain. And when we have that neutral pelvis, it's like a lovely level flower pot for the spine to grow out of, which is great because the spine is another thing that we look at when we are trying to help kids or adults with their alignment. The biggest misunderstanding I get with spine in relationship to alignment is that it should be straight. This is a reasonable misunderstanding. It really is. Because we talk about sit up straight, stand up straight, straight spine. It's not straight. It was never designed to be straight. There are 4 curves in your spine. Back of your neck curves forward a little bit, through the rib cage curves back a little bit, the waist area curves forward a little bit, and then the sacrum curves back a little bit. You should have this nice little serpentine up your spine. These curves are important. They work as shock absorbers. They help reduce injury. They help with range of motion. If you think about the ways the different parts of the spine move, those curves help that movement happen. They're really, really important. Once upon a time, people thought maybe flattening them out was a good idea, but it really isn't. It really isn't a good idea to do that. You will see more back injuries in dancers if you insist that they flatten those curves. Now, not everybody's curves look the same. Some people have really, really curvy spines this way. I'm not talking side to side. I'm not talking scoliosis. That's different. But some people have really, really large curves. They just do. Some of us don't. And we don't want every body in the room to look exactly the same because they don't all have the same skeleton. If you start with the level pelvis, ASIS, PSIS, nice and level, that engages what you need, releases what you don't need, and allows the spine to settle into its natural curves as long as no one else has taught someone to pull back. For example, in the neck. Oh, this one makes me so sad. But in the neck, I do know that there are plenty of teachers who teach that you want to pull back so that your ears are level with this makes no sense to me. But I know teachers in my area who teach this. Well, this doesn't make any sense because A, look at all this tension. B, look at the range of motion I have. How is that going to help me spot? If I relax, that is significantly more range of motion. That's going to help me spot. Also, if I put tension in one part of my spine, the spine is a chain. It's a chain reaction system, right? Tension in one area is going to equal tension in another area, which is ultimately going to lower my arabesque. And by ultimately, I don't mean several years down the road. I mean as soon as I try it. You need to release this curve in your spine in order to get the curve in your lower spine, your lower back that you're hoping for. The other misunderstanding that I see around the curves in spines is the idea that your booty should be flat. Curves are normal. Curves are healthy. You are supposed to curve through your booty because A, your glutes are pretty round. I don't know if you've looked at anatomy, but your glutes are pretty round and they're pretty important. And B, your sacrum curves outward a little bit, right? Let it do its job, especially the sacrum, because those bones are primarily fused. There's not a lot of range of motion in there. So to try to insist that a sacrum that is designed to do this does this, knowing that none of this can move, and hi, have you ever had pain in your SI joint, which would be right here? That's not fun. Think about how is this movement going to happen? Does that sound healthy? It's not. Also, if the sacrum is doing this naturally, how much extra muscular force is it going to take to keep it here? And how many of those muscles that you have now clenched to do this would be better served contracting for a different movement or relaxing to allow a different movement? So we start with our level pelvis and then we let the spine grow like a beautiful vining flower out of that. Okay, y'all are way zoomed out, but I needed you to be able to see my whole body. So here we go. The last thing that is really helpful with alignment is your center line and how it is placed over your base of support. I'm not talking about the middle of your face. I'm talking about if you were a merry-go-round horse and you had a pole going through the center of your body. So it comes out the top of your head and it needs to go and land in between the base of your support. So the easiest place for that to land is going to be right here. This is the easiest to balance in, right? As the feet get closer together, we have less to balance on. We have less to balance on. Once the shape we're standing on changes, we have less, it gets weirder. This is why arabesque is so tricky. Also, basically anything, derriere, attitude, is because we're here, yay, nice little tube. Once we take a chunk of our weight backwards, there has to be a counterbalance forward, but this center line still has to land over the base of support. Also, now my base of support is just 1 foot. So instead of standing between 2 feet, I have decreased the amount of space that I have to center on and increased the amount of compensation throughout space that I need. Getting that center line over the base of support is what enables dancers to be able to balance throughout movement. So instead of being placed for a picture, we are aligned while we dance. When a dancer has a good sense of getting their center line over their base of support, and they understand how that changes throughout movement, that helps so much, not just with things like pirouettes, although that helps a lot, but especially with connecting steps. Glisses and glissades get much more graceful because instead of trying to hold a thing, like a shape, a place from point A to point B, suddenly we are moving from point A to point B. It doesn't necessarily sound like there's a big difference, but when people can wrap their brain around, I need to be level in my pelvis, I need to have natural curves in my spine, and I need to be centered over how much of the floor I am standing on, it really, really helps them find the vocabulary they already know pretty quickly, which is always really gratifying. But let me know in the comments below, what are the alignment struggles that you have in your classes? I love to make content in response to comments. It's one of my favorite things to do. I also do talk about alignment in my book. I mean, the book is called Artistry Inside Ballet Technique, but alignment is an important part of having artistry, especially when we get into really complex ideas like line. So I do talk about, I did the illustrations myself, by the way. I talk about the importance of the curve in arabesque and how you need to have 2 of them. I talk about like this mythical alignment for all bodies. Like this is what you'll see in a textbook, but it's not what you're going to see on a person ever. I talk about the center line and talk about a bunch of other things. If you want to go more deeply into line, that is a resource that I am really proud of. I'll include the Amazon link for you. But again, if you have a question, drop it in the comments and I am happy to answer that for you. As always, I hope you have a really great class.